Alton Alton Anitra. Alton Alton Bob Mary. Good morning, everyone. Dua for joining us today for our regularly scheduled communion. We're going to go ahead and get started with our Sunday morning prayer, and then we will dive into the roll call. So we begin our prayer by saying, Amatu and Panatir, Sauek tuament and Panatir, Au Duauma, Kedi Paharu. The translation, give yourself to Netta daily, keep yourself for Netta daily, and do it tomorrow as you do it today. We give homage to the Creator, who is like our Father and who is like our Mother, who is everything that we can perceive and everything that we cannot perceive, who is everything and yet is no thing, who comes to us in the form of the Netru Ra, who is the light of the heavens, the light of the inner planes, as well as the light of our lives, who shines the light for us on the path of Ma'ati, which is the path of truth, justice, righteousness, and harmonious balance, who comes to us in the form of the light of vitality, giving us the strength and the endurance to live and act upon that which we know to be true. Homage to you, the one who shines in and through us as a beacon of light for those who are blind to the facts of their place, their position, and their responsibility in the divine scheme of things. May we be Ma'akaru, true of thought, word, and deed, to our highest reality, and in the moments of crises in the dark nights of the soul when it appears that everyone and everything else has let us down, so it is and so shall it be. Amen Ma'at. Ma'akaru. Dua Netzer. All right, everybody, let's chime in and join us for the roll call. So I see you got some people on YouTube. We got some people on Facebook who've joined us this morning. Dua for joining us. Where you all joining us from? We really would like to know who's there and where you guys are chiming in from. So please drop your location in the chat.
Got Lord Spirit up in the place. That's later.
Yes.
Soundtrack.
Yeah. Anitra joining us from Spartanburg, South Carolina. We got Philly in the building. Alton Oncton Waseret, Long Island. Lower East Side of New York, Manhattan. Hamden, Connecticut is in the house. Dua Netzer, Orlando, Florida. Philly is in the house. Brooklyn is in the building. Hamden, Connecticut. Camden, New Jersey, on YouTube and Facebook, Dua Netzer. Philly to NJ. Greenburgh, New York. Nice. I think that's like right outside of the city. Uncle my aunt mom. Boston, Massachusetts. Brooklyn, New York. Phoenix, Arizona. Humble, Texas. Atlanta, Georgia. Bloomfield, New Jersey. Dua Netzer. I did get them. I think that's everybody. Brooklyn, New York. That's what's up. New Orleans. Oh, look, it's Uncle Manu. Uncle my eye. Good to see you.
If you heard that track, we got that Hesse from your book, brother.
Oh yeah, yeah. Uncle Banu's book is one of the books on our recommended reading list, so shout out to him and to Hanan Sue out in New Orleans. What? Okay. Don't be distracting us. So on that, sir. Well, we hope you all enjoyed that track that we were playing at the beginning there. That is one of the completed tracks from Nasit's upcoming project, A New Radiance, which is going to be launching real soon. We're super excited to be able to put out that second album of his. The first album, A New Ambiance, is available on our website as a physical CD, as a digital download. It is also available on all of the streaming sites like Tidal and Amazon Music and Spotify and everywhere you buy your music. That's where you can get it. A New Ambiance has 6 tracks, and A New Radiance is going to have 11. So it's going to be a bigger album. It is a different album. There's some meditation tracks, but there's a lot of dance tracks. There's some tracks to get you moving and you feel good.
In there,
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
promised. Some bars.
Some bars like you promised.
I put my foot in this one, y'all. I really went in, or we went in.
So keep an eye out for that. We're really excited to be able to bring that forward and to be able to share that music with you all.
Let's play it on the outro too, since we have more people.
You got it. Okay. I think that's it as far as anything I wanted to share. So I'm gonna let you dive right in.
Okay. All right. So today we're gonna talk about a part 2 from last week. which is Real Talk Reset Part 2. Because as we proceed to move on in our journey as spiritualists, as Kemites, we just got to get some things straight. We have to set the record straight every now and then. We just have to have a reset talk, because sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. We have to understand we are trying to make big moves, but we also have to make baby steps. And even before baby steps, we have to make nano steps. And we have to consciously check ourselves. We have to always consciously check ourselves by the standard. Last time I started off by saying that I was releasing myself from other people's expectations and projections upon myself. This month, I guess I'm on this planet over at least a half a century now. And every now and then, in my opinion, I feel like every 10 years you have to reinvent yourself or redefine yourself for yourself, because if you don't do that, then other people will do it for you. And people have this habit of projecting weird stuff upon you if you don't make yourself clear at all times. Some people, it's always some weird stuff. You'd be like, you thought I was supposed to do that? I didn't say I was going to do that. I didn't say that's who I was. I didn't say that's what it is that I do. So you always have to be clear about things like that. So here, what we do on this platform, we do grown folk talk, real spiritual grown folk talk. There's a lot of people that talk about African spirituality or Kemetic spirituality. They talk about it, they talk around it. We talk about what it is and actually how to do it. As I look at the numbers on here, I would have thought by this time this year, we've been doing consistently for like a year and a half from the home. We've guided people directly through the quarantine. I would have thought we'd have had over 100, or of course we should be thinking we should have hundreds of people and stuff like that, but it is what it is. So I see the number on there, and the majority of the number is pretty much our people, and as well as we're bringing through several groups of initiation currently, so we'll just accept it for what it is, because as we're on this platform and international, you see only a small percentage of people are really about that talk that they're supposed to be about, the real talk. A lot of people talk about stuff around things, but it has to be about this real talk. So since we're at it, let us reintroduce ourselves. We're Het Anu, we're the temple of Anu. We're a temple, we're not a church, we're not a mosque, we're not a synagogue. Even though some of the things that we do are similar to those things, we are not those things, and we should not be compared to those institutions or how they function. I am Nasut, is Chief King, and she is the Hemet, Nasut Waret, Chief King, Queen Mother. We are not apostles of God. We are not your pastors. She's not the first lady. We're not bishops. If you want to compare us to anything, compare us to African models. Compare us to the Asante Hene model in Ghana, because it corresponds to the ancient Kemetic traditional beliefs. Compare us to the Obas in Nigeria. Those things are different, distinct functions from pastors and priests of the Christian tradition. Have a different function. In fact, if you look at what me and Hemet do, we go above and beyond what traditional kings and chiefs do. In traditional societies, you wouldn't have the king and chief and the chiefess actually having these conversations with you. They have their priests that do that. We have priests also, but yet we're still doing what it is that we do, because it's necessary. We do it for the love of the culture. We do it for the love of the people. And that's our personal example is telling all of us that we have to all do a little bit more than what's expected of us sometimes. So in respect of what a lot of other people are doing, people are failing to tap and touch and directly talk about what is the spirit of the legacy. What you're getting in the conscious community is a splash or an eclectic blend of history mixed with nationalism. In the conscious community, it's become kind of like a vector of anti-religious sentiment. So people come to the Kemetic thing, or people think being Kemetic is about expressing how Christian you're not. When I look at what's going on online, people are just taking shots at Christianity and Islam as though that's the criteria of being African. And those people that do that, they have all the Kemetic paraphernalia, they have the names and everything, but they know little to nothing about Kemet. So those people are equivalent to fans of Kemet. So in this day and time where people expressing anti-religious sentiment and even anti-African sentiment in our conscious community, us as the Temple of Anu, we represent an anomaly because clearly we're spiritual, but if you look at us, it looks like we have religious entrappings. And those religious entrappings are really codes and standards and discipline to stop people from fornicating with the culture. I repeat, that what you call the religious entrapments are codes, standards, and discipline to stop people from fornicating with the culture. Because we're living in a society where they're trying to relax all types of standards, where they want it, where anything goes. When you come into African tradition, or any of the African tradition, anything doesn't go. There's going to be a code, there's going to be a standard, and there's going to be a discipline. If you're not about that, if you're not inclined for codes and discipline, then this is not the tradition for you. So we got to put it out there like that, and we can't get on this converting thing and make it seem like what we do is for everybody, and it's everything. It's not strict, and you could do anything. Like, no, you can't do what it is that you want when you come to African tradition. So, in respect to what it is that everyone else is doing, eventually all of them are going to have to come home. Now, when I say come home, I'm not talking about come here and bend the knee to the Temple of Anu. I'm saying come home to real spirituality, talk to the essence of spirituality, which transcends beyond religion. So yes, in our talks, I will always try to be historical. I'll always have a historical reference, because when you learn from us here, you're going to get a fourfold truth. The number one truth, you're going to hear Kemetic truth. We're going to teach about Kemetic spirituality. But in reality, Kemet doesn't have all the answers. It has a lot of answers, but it doesn't have all the answers. So as a backup, another layer is to study African tradition, not the Bible, not the Quran, not those other traditions, but we study supporting African traditions from East Africa. And if we can't find supporting traditions in East Africa, we're going to go to our people in West Africa, and therefore we could come up with a more complete expression of what it is that African spirituality is, that we affectionately call Kemmunion. Because there's only one African religion, there's only one African tradition, which is to be in tune with nature and to venerate the ancestors. I hope y'all understand that. That is African tradition, no matter East, West, North, South Africa, is to be in tune with nature and to venerate your ancestors. So in respect to everybody, they eventually have to come home to these two things. And you all should be writing down your notes, because this is class at the same time. So it's going to come down to two things. Because I don't need you to write them down, because I know what I teach and I know what I teach when I teach. But sometimes in our community, people are under this illusion that they're not learning or you're not teaching anything, when essence is very subtle. So these two things, number one is direction. When you come here, you're going to get some direction, and number two is you're going to get substance. Those are two of the most important things when having your approach to any type of spirituality. You're going to need direction and you're going to need substance. Now, direction, there's a quote that says, follow in the footsteps of your ancestors. Their words endure in books. Open them and read them, and follow their wise instructions. So that's direction. Direction is, what is this legacy? What is it about? And how do I do it? That's what it is that we do here. What is it? What's it about? And how do I do it? That is direction. Where are we going with this thing? And then you have substance. Break the word substance down. There's sub and stance. Stance is what you stand on, and sub is that which is under. So what does it do for you? Does this legacy hold up for you? These are the things that we discuss in here, directly as well as indirectly. So we're talking about history. All history is in the context of what it is that we can learn and how are we to proceed forward from there. We don't talk about history just for the sake of history's sake. So substance, what does it do for you? What do you stand on? And this is an interesting thing. Many people answer different ways, because a lot of people have a lot of romantic ideas of what they think African culture is. So when people ask, what is it doing for you? The worldly mind will be like, well, if it's not making you money, if you ain't got rich from it and it's not making you no money, then it's not doing anything for you, because the worldly mind thinks that the most important thing in this world is making money. So if you're not making money through or by as a result of your spirituality, then somehow you're wasting time, which is patently false, which has nothing to do with African spirituality. Am I going too fast?
You're going a little fast,
Okay,
but
let's slow it down.
yeah.
All right.
Make them marinate on it.
Marinate on it. All right. So substance. So what is it that you stand on, and does it hold up? So if you're standing on it and it holds you up, then the substance becomes sustenance. It gets you through some things. So as I was saying, a lot of people have a romantic approach to African spirituality. So they come thinking that they're going to learn a bunch of rituals that's going to teach them how to get a lot of money, and life is going to be easy. That's not what African spirituality is about. Even though as a result of doing these rituals or ceremonies or kesu, it's going to get you on your path. And if it's for you on your path to make a lot of money and live easy and good, then that's what it is. But that is not the goal or objective. The other thing people think is going to be a series of rituals that's going to protect, give you spiritual protection where nothing bad could happen to you. And for the most part, nothing does happen to practitioners of African tradition. And so let's deal with it. So you're not promised to be rich, and you're not promised to be 100% protected. There's one text, I forget what it said it, or where it was. It said something about each person is allotted their portion of evil, meaning you're going to have to go through some things, spiritually protected or not, enlightened or not. You're going to have to go through some things. And how do you know that you're not rich? Because that type of money you think you want to make is not necessarily congruent with who you are and who you're meant to become. How do you know that this thing that you're going through is not to destroy you, but it is to give you character development? Because we all have dreams. And if you're melanated, you're supposed to have big dreams. And some of our dreams are ridiculously big. We want to help our people. We want to do all these type of things. Those are big dreams. So some of the things that happen to you are for your character development to qualify you for that big dream. Because to have that big dream, you're going to have to go through the fire. To go through the fire, you're going to have to go through some things. How could you qualify for such a big dream when you respond so poorly to disappointment? When you respond so poorly to direct, intentional or indirect betrayal? Because best believe disappointment is a part of that path to success, to that path to abundance and prosperity. Whatever it is that you think you want to do, you're going to be disappointed not by the white folks of the world. You're going to be disappointed by your people. You're going to experience betrayal directly or indirectly by your people. So when I'm looking at our people, we have such poor responses to this. We're always quitting. Oh, when you're experiencing some disappointment, oh, I quit. I hate my people. I can't be bothered. Oh, we experience disappointment on a regular. We experience indirect betrayal on a regular. My people get on my nerves, but I never quit. I continue to try to improve myself. I continue to try to learn from the example and improve on my design. That is the lesson from that. So what I'm recognizing that even at this point in 2021, after then there 50 years of information proliferating in this community, people are still way too emotional. There's this saying that emotions are good servants but poor masters. And people are failing at embodying that. It's way too emotional. We can't get to the higher spirituality because people are so busy, too busy, poorly responding to just basic things in life. You're going to experience disappointment. Everybody ain't going to be rich overnight. So we're going to have to handle those things better. For instance, the situation we had with the brother Shaka Akmo several months ago, when we said emotions are good servants but poor masters. He failed in that test. He had an issue with one of our brothers, and because he failed to deal with the brother directly, he attacked myself as well as our whole spiritual community because he failed to master his emotions. So when you're dealing with a spiritual community, you're dealing with resources, a community where we have a bunch of people, everyone is resources. So because he failed to master his emotions, now he has no resources, or at least us as a resource for him. We could have supported him. He's a smart brother. He has interesting contributions, powerful contributions to the legacy. He could have been that much more profound with the support of a community. Now, if he is listening, he's still in his ego, he might be like, bump, y'all, I don't need you, I was on my own anyway. And I would say, well, that's patently false, or that is un-African, because African is about interdependence, not independence, interdependence. So our scholastic brothers got to realize that you're going to have to respect code, you're going to have to respect tradition before we're going to be able to move on. Because we're all constantly talking about this thing called nation building, and I'm gonna just lay it out there. That's a distraction. At no point, at least as I studied in history, never has Africa moved as a total unit. So we have to stop putting all this pressure on us as a small little organization that we have to somehow be big and profound enough to do something for everybody at the same time. So we are Kemetti, we're part of the Afro-Kemetti tradition. So our first responsibility is to make sure the adherents of this way of life get on code. So we have the big nation building model, but then we have what it is, which is our personal responsibility to that model. We're not moving as a nation because many people are failing in their personal responsibility in the areas of personal accountability. Because quiet is kept, those of you, you know who we're talking about, those of you who have anger issues, because you have these anger issues and you're constantly looking for reasons to justify your anger, is undermining relationships. We cannot get to the bigger goal of nation building if we undermine relationships. Relationships are supposed to be sacred. So if you cannot process, if you don't have a control of your anger, you're undermining that forward progress. Number two, those of you who are socially awkward, that throws things off. So you say things at the wrong times, do things at the wrong time. Because of that socially awkwardness, it undermines the sacredness of relationships. Get people not trusting in you. Get people not wanting to work with you. People pulling back. That undermines the nation building model. Then we got a section of the community that has no respect for codes of conduct, rules, and standards and stuff. For some reason, a significant portion of our community is always trying to do things their way instead of the way that they were instructed to. So always looking for some loopholes not to do it the correct way. So everyone has to get on code, or we have to constantly have these conversations about what is the code and what is our traditional approach to the code. So that's what I present to a lot of the scholars, because everyone's talking about our people, our people, our people, but when I push back and hold them to the fire and show them that they're off code, then that's when I notice a lot of them say, well, just because the ancestors did it don't mean I gotta do it. Just because the ancestors believe that, I ain't gotta believe it. Matter of fact, I'm atheist, I don't believe in none of that. I just want to see my people free. And I'm saying, as a nation, we consist of many nations of ethnicities within this concept that our people call a nation. So many ethnicities have codes, many ethnicities have tradition, and many of these ethnicities or nations within our nation have sacred feelings for this. So there is no talking about getting our people free if you have no healthy respect for tradition or code. These same individuals, they'll go to Africa and go to the Asante Henny and they be like, that's the Asante Henny, you got to bend your knee and go and greet them. They'll do it without question. They be like, that's the elder over there, you got to go touch her toe. And they'll bend. They be like, okay, yeah, that's the elder. Then we come over here to the West. And everybody been talking for the past 60 years how we have to get our culture and we have to restore our tradition. And here we are in the middle of restoring the tradition. So throughout the country, we have chiefs and kings, we have elders, and these same individuals won't acknowledge, respect our elders and chiefs the same way they do total strangers on the other side of the pond over there. These are the things that's holding us back from this so-called nation building model. So we can't just obsess over, let's do this, look, why aren't we growing, why aren't we doing it when we're failing on a regular personal or interpersonal level. So I want to talk about our cultural filter. When we look at life or the world, we're supposed to be viewing it from our cultural filter. And what I'm noticing is that in our community, we're becoming very worldly. We're getting away from our filter. We said culture is a way of life. I built on it and said culture is strategies for survival. So when you say culture, you're still talking about codes and protocols on how to survive. Now, we're Kemetti people, and the Kemetti people have a Kemetti culture. I would even go so far as to say we don't have culture, we have a divine culture. We put that prefix divine culture in front of culture because we're not just trying to survive, we're trying to thrive. Mm-hmm. So the Kemetti culture is a divine culture. When we use that word divine, we tend to think of neter or neteru. And we understand the neter and the neteru as divine principles that are responsible for maintaining life as we know it. I repeat, the neter or the neteru that people call gods and goddesses, some know them as orishas, are responsible for maintaining life as we know it. I'm trying to slow it down. I see that I'm in my hip hop flow. Got bars for days, so I'm trying to slow it down. And neteru are principles responsible for maintaining life as we know it. So, in physics, we have something called centrifugal force, and we have something called centripetal force. So that's clockwise and counterclockwise. Those are forces of nature. Without those things, existence on the planet as we know it cannot exist. Follow that. So if you were to happen to get a power to turn centrifugal into centripetal and centripetal into centrifugal, life as we know it wouldn't exist. It would just upset what we know the balance to be. Now follow me. We have a law called gravity. So you could go at the top of a building and you could decide, well, who says down got to be there? If I want to go up, why should I have to go down? I'm going to decide to go up. And we can say, hey, you can see it the way you want, but that might not work out for you. Breathing. Everyone organically breathes, but everyone doesn't organically breathe the correct way. That's why you come to yoga and meditation to learn how to breathe the correct way, to maximize, to optimize your breathing for optimal mental, physical, spiritual, and psychological health. So even though everyone's breathing, everyone is not necessarily breathing properly. So now, after learning or being instructed on how to breathe properly, you can decide, well, I'm going to hold my breath as much as I can. And we can say, hey, that's your right, but that might not work out for you too good. So by trying to hold your breath because you got the right to breathe any way you want to breathe, it's going against the natural order of things. Remember I said centrifugal, centripetal. If you had the power to change that, it would upset the balance of nature. So if you go up the top of the building and you try to go against nature, you're going to get hurt. If you try to breathe any your way you want to breathe and not acknowledge the proper way, you're going to cause yourself some problems directly as well as indirectly. So this is where I'm getting to. So we're at this point where I'm seeing a lot of people have these thoughts and ideas that's clashing with the culture. So here we are, we're initiates. Many of us are initiates. Initiate means to begin again. You've been given permission to officially study. So as initiates in the culture, you're being initiated into codes, conducts, and standards. So if you have problems with codes, conducts, and standards in the worldview, then it's probably best for you not to be initiated. So you're accepting the charge and the challenge to do things and see things the way your ancestors done. And our ancestors, remember, we have a divine culture, so our culture is based on principles that sustain life as we know it. So if you're gonna override that with your own personal belief and your opinion, you have that right, but it might not work out for you. In the end, at least. To quote Shechem and Shechem, he said, you have free will and you have the right to do anything, but you don't have the right to disrespect God. To rephrase it, you have the right to do what you want, but you don't have the right to disrespect divine law. Because remember, it is divine law that sustains us all. So when I'm looking online and things, I'm looking at so-called us in our conscious community, us as spiritualists, I see a lot of worldly talking points. And as initiates into the culture, we're supposed to be seeing things from our vantage point and not getting caught up in the other people's foreign philosophies. For instance, ancient Kemet for 1,000 years have been the center of the world. It has influenced all of the bigger cultures that we know. And they was trying to imitate our language, imitate our image and everything. But now I'm looking at so-called conscious folks online. I'm hearing more worldly thoughts come from them. I'm looking at their image and I'm just like, I'm not seeing the culture at all. I'm not hearing the culture in the words in people's posts. I'm not seeing the culture in how they're presenting themselves. When you see me here on this platform, you see a blend of East Africa and West Africa. I'm not saying that everyone has to look like me, but we're supposed to see our culture. We're supposed to see our ancestors in there. And I'm saying people are kind of getting away from that. We get to decide, like, okay, how you want to rock this culture. What should it look like? What does it look like for you? You know, we don't all gotta look the same. But what I'm saying online is, like, I can't tell who's spiritual and who's not. I can't tell who's worldly. I can't see the ancestors anymore. And as initiates, we're supposed to put our ancestor or our filter first. So when they're seeing us, they're supposed to see our culture unapologetically. I hope y'all can follow those points. For instance, there's a lot of talk about gender. In our culture, there's only the sacred masculine and there's only the sacred feminine. That it. No variables.
That's right.
Sacred masculine, sacred feminine. We don't have to support a lot of these conversations that's going on about gender and this and what's that. Because our culture is ma'at. Ma'at is about structure. It's about order. We're supposed to only be supporting people in things and conversations that's interested in being the best version of themselves, being the best balanced versions of themselves. So we're supposed to be looking for ma'at in all things. But when I'm listening to the conversation, what I'm hearing is people are pushing this dialogue or this narrative that somehow one gender is inherently or organically superior than the other. That's not Kemetic. That's not our thought process. That's not the Kemetic view. One is not organically better than the other. When you see the masculine, based off of seen and unseen, the principles of Amen and the principles of Ra, the feminine could be unseen when it looks like the masculine is dominant. And when the feminine is dominant, the masculine side is unseen. That is the principle of existence. Without that, you have nothing. So we should not get in this conversation of who's superior. The black woman is not God. No more God than the black man is God. In the Kemetic tradition, if we're being fair about it, the black, or the image of God, is the black family, as we learned from Professor Smalls. That's why you see Asar, Oset, and Heru. That's why you see Ptah, Sekhmet, and Nefertum. That's why you see Amen, you see Mut, and you see Khonsu. The black family is the image of the divine. That's where our conversations need to be going. So we, for the past 50, 60 years, it's interesting, 50, 60, 70 years ago, our ancestors, our predecessors had less education and less money than us, but they got things right more so than us. Because for the most part, from what I'm recognizing, they didn't do things for what people are calling happiness. They did things primarily for duty, they did it for family, and they did it for legacy. I'll repeat, not for happiness, they did it for duty, family, and legacy. A lot of people, when they look at their grandparents, they're not necessarily the image of what they call romantic love. What we see in our grandparents, a lot of times, we see something that's admirable. We see that they've been through something and they stuck it out. And we see something in that's admirable, but we don't always, I'm sure there's always cases of we don't see that lovey-dovey thing that people be thinking love is supposed to look like. For instance, several generations before that, is coming off of slavery. So the idea of being able to get your own family, to establish your own legacy, that was their idea of happiness. And since then, more rights have came, and like from one generation to the next generation, then we start getting this litany of lists about what's going to make us happy. And that so-called pursuit of happiness that's in the Constitution has led us to an 80% divorce rate. So I would have to go with Buddha, and Buddha says happiness is illusion because it's transitory. As spiritualists, we're supposed to be seeking ma'at, we're supposed to be seeking balance, we're supposed to be seeking centeredness. And in that centeredness is peace. Peace is superior to happiness because happiness is transitory. Negative things happen in life, but they're only temporary. Good things in life happen, and they're also temporary. It would behoove, it would do you in your best interest to maintain peace. So when it's going bad, you be like, all right, it's cool. When it's going good, you be like, yo, that's hot, but it's temporary too. I'm still cool. So we have to deal with our discontentment as spiritualists. Everyone's never happy, never satisfied. You could get your little cheesecake and you be like, yo, this was good, but you know what would have made it hotter if I would have had my cherry Coke? Be like, yo, this outfit is good, but now I still got to get my hair done. Yo, this person is a good mate. They look good and they're on their purpose, but the only thing is they're not making enough money. So there's always this but. That's why I would say we need to go with being centered. And what is peace in our tradition? What is the word for peace? That we say is Hatep. So let's look at the glyph for Hatep. Hatep is considered like an offering table or offering mat with what in the center?
Bread.
Bread is called ta. So the mat is a square or rectangle representing the four directions, the four corners of the universe. Is a metaphor of that. If you notice, the bread is not at the left, it's not at the right, it's not at the back, it's not at the front, it's center. So bread is a carb, what you say carbohydrate. It's carbon and hydrogen. It consists of molecules of carbon, which is the foundational molecule responsible for life. It's based off of another molecule of hydrogen, which is the most abundant element in the universe. And then there's an element of oxygen, which is for combustion. So this carbohydrate or this bread is there to sustain energy or to stimulate energy. Which is interesting because nowadays in 2021, carbs are the enemy. Everybody, oh, don't mess with the carbs, leave the carbs alone. Our ancestors were laborers, so the carb is the friend to the laborer, but it's the enemy to the blue collar worker, the person that sits down. They don't combust, they don't use that oxygen to burn that thing. So here you got bread represents the energy, which represents this spark, which lets you know that peace has nothing to do with just sitting still. You're supposed to move in peace. That's why we were saying Em Hatep means I come forth offering peace, because you have achieved that within, and because you did it, you go off into the world trying to establish that. So, far as relationships, so if you're not entering your relationships in peace to establish peace and to support peace, you might need to slow your roll about getting in a relationship. Same with men and women both. So if you're not supremely aware of yourself, if you're not supremely aware of your issues and got a hold of your issues and close to on your journey to bringing closure to your issues, then you need to stay away from relationships, because you would be contributing to making the world a worse place. You're gonna mess around and have some children and then pass on a generational curse that the next generation got to figure out what the heck is going on. So you have to get control. You have to be aware of what your issues are and then get on it actively and how to bring closure to your healing issues. You don't want to bring your issues into the relationship. So I'm listening to the women's dialogue and they be like, oh, the world hate us and our men is on it, our men is against us too. And they're totally right. When I listen to all their talking points, it's totally right. But understand everything is but half true. When you listen to the men in the manosphere and they be like, oh, the world is against us, they killing us in the street and our women are against us too. And they're totally right too. And then we're failing to realize the world don't like either one of us. And we both better snap out of our BS and realize that all we got is each other. And we got to stop trying to one up or trump each other's trauma, or trying to figure out who got the worst trauma than the next person. So we should be striving to be the best balanced version of ourselves, not just the best version, the best balanced version of ourselves, because balance is ma'at. Ma'at is balance. Balance is symmetry. When you hear the word symmetry, we're talking about that. That's another variable of balance. So symmetry represents equality, but not the same, not sameness. So men express certain qualities, women express certain qualities. So they're equal, but not the same. So we have to all go within ourselves and find out what are the qualities of our gender, and learn to embrace that in the most ma'atic way possible. So how a man loves a woman is not the same way a woman loves a man. How a man protects a woman is not the same way a woman protects the man. Do y'all understand what I'm saying? So equality is not the same as sameness. Mm-hmm. So we have symmetry. So we have balance. Balance is symmetry, and symmetry is beauty. So in the ancient tradition, they have this thing called the golden mean or the golden ratio, which means the balance between the extremes. They said the ancient buildings were built off of the golden mean. So technically symmetry is beautiful. To determine a face is beautiful, it has to be symmetrical. To determine a body is beautiful, it has to be a balance between the height and weight. So beauty is not necessarily in the eye of the beholder based off a principle. It's dealing with symmetry. So you have symmetry, then you have what you call asymmetry, or something that's asymmetrical. So if symmetry is asymmetry, or asymmetrical is isfet. Now all of us wasn't born beautiful, so-called beautiful. Some of us were born with challenges. And that's where karma, the so-called concept of karma, come in. Remember I said we embrace the chaos because we love to create harmony. So we have to accept that we're not perfect and we have to work on ourselves. That's, remember, the nature of existence is to work. So now we'll go on to ethnic image. There's a conversation about ethnic image, this whole thing about do-rags, bonnets, pajamas, slippers. As a committee, all of that's unacceptable. I said it. All of that's unacceptable. Kemites, our standard is excellence. The quote Ptah Hotep and said, if you're a leader and commander of many, strive for excellence in all that you do. Be blameless in matters of conduct. But our people be like, well, we ain't no leaders. That's for like people like you and Nasut and Hemet. That's for y'all. That ain't for us. And are not black folks the leaders in most of these trends that's going around? So if we're gonna lead people, let's not lead them to hell. Let's lead them to someplace good. Let's lead them to someplace sweet and stuff. So we all are responsible for our ethnic image. Remember, everyone was following Kemet language, image, and everything. So now where are we letting them, what are we doing with all this attention that's on us? So we were telling people to dress better, and people take offense. People are trying to relax the standard because they want it easy. Like, no, we come from a culture with high standards. We didn't tell people to dress better to stop people from getting killed from the police. Some people think that's what that conversation is about. No, we don't tell you to sharpen up your image to stop you from getting killed by the police, even though it helps. That's right. The percentage of men or women that's wearing suits and cultural garments getting killed by the police in the ratio according to those that's not is nowhere near the same. So you can't promise you won't die walking out your house. So nothing is 100%, but you got to work the averages better. So nobody, I don't remember ever seeing on the news nobody coming in my image getting shot and killed by the police, or Baba Haru's image coming getting shot and killed by the police. Not to say we're invulnerable to that, but there's less chances of that. So image does mean something. Image does have an effect. Now some people say, well, who's making the standard? I said, we make the standards. White folks didn't make the standard, we make the standard. If I just quoted that excellence is our standard, our ancestors did that, as well as the several generations before us. We made the standards. At this point, I would have to say, what's understood doesn't need to be said. My mother didn't need to tell me not to go outside with a do-rag on my head. My mother didn't tell me not to wear my slippers outside. If I went to my mother's house with my slippers and pajamas, I don't wear pajamas anyway. If I wore slippers and pajamas, she'd look at me like I was crazy. She didn't have to tell me not to do that. But nobody wants to be told, whether a hard check or a soft check, no one wants to be told anything. There's one thing to go out to your mailbox and you got your bonnet and all that stuff on to take the garbage out, and somebody happened to see you. Like, there was a time you didn't want to get caught like that. You're like, oh man, I'm slipping. Somebody tell you, so if you're like, remember, all of that stuff is sleepwear, do-rags, bonnets, all of that stuff, you're supposed to be going to bed with that. So once you step out the house and go to a store or whatever, you're off code. It don't need to be said. So what you should be doing is taking accountability, be like, yeah, I know I'm slipping, I gotta be better, but you don't double down and be like, who you to tell me? Nah, we had an unspoken code, and it was clear until 2021. For some reason, we can't talk about standards of a people. And I'm saying our culture is about standards, so all of you out there don't like standards, don't come to African tradition, because there's gonna be some standards in there.
That's right, that's right. And we're gonna be checking.
So who said it? Like our ancestors. I said our predecessors before. I saw an article last month I want to read to you, or some of it to you, that like after slavery, they was dealing with a lot of the same stuff, or this conversation about public image that we're dealing with. It's not necessarily new, but our ancestors were trying to project themselves to be something different than what the world thought. So here's the beginning of the article, the opening. It says how Black Americans use portraits and family photographs to defy stereotypes. unstable, criminal, impoverished, absentee fathers, neglectful mothers, a tangle of pathology, as Moynihan report was in 1965, a study on black poverty put it. It said, for decades, the black family has been denigrated as dysfunctional. When mass media exploded in the late 19th century, degrading images of black Americans as inferior, clownish, and dangerous saturated nearly every aspect of popular culture, from music to advertising. The evolution of the radio, film, and television in the 20th century only amplified demeaning images, providing quote-unquote proof to white Americans of black inferiority and justification for denying them rights. Today, many of these same tired images persist and continue to feed baseless perceptions. A 2017 study showed that the news media continue to inaccurately portray black families as more poor, criminal, and unstable than white families. When those malicious images first started to proliferate, black Americans found an especially effective way to resist. They seized upon the camera to represent themselves using photographs to depict who they really were, seemingly as seemingly a quote-unquote magical instrument for the displaced and the marginalized. As the critic Bell Hook writes, the camera provided immediate intervention to counter the injurious images used to deny them their rightful place in American history. A record of everyday black Americans. In 2013, a historian and collector named Frank Morrill, who lives in Charlton, a suburb of Worcester, Massachusetts, discovered 230 portraits of people of color amongst the 5,300 glass negatives of photographs of photographer William Bueller. Let me scroll down. Symbols of resilience and aspiration. The existence of these family units was an achievement in its own right. At the time Bueller made his portrait, slavery and family separations remained a traumatic memory for many of his subjects. As a result, family portraits were especially significant. They testified to the achievements and the aspirations of black Americans and their resilience of their kinship networks. And for people whose history had so often been obliterated, the photographs provided the opportunity to preserve their stories for future generations. Conveying respectability and stability. Other photographs portray flourishing young families claiming their place in American society. The subjects present themselves as ordinary, upstanding Americans who share the same values, tastes, and aspirations as their contemporaries. And then, it just goes on showing pictures of examples of how, even though the people didn't have much, they presented themselves in the best possible way they could because they had some sense of ethnic image and pride. So we're coming back to, we have to seek symmetry in every aspect of life that we could possibly have, because symmetry is balance and balance is beauty. So we have to learn how to develop the skill and how to recognize beauty in all things that we see and all things that we do. So I'll conclude on that level. I thank y'all for your time and your energy today.
Duanetta, you have spoken and you have spoken well. We appreciate you all joining us today for our regularly scheduled communion. We thank you for your energy and your time. We ask those of you who are able to and willing to send a donation to support our movement and the work that we do with the temple in Newark, New Jersey and beyond. You can send a donation by Cash App to $ Temple of Anu, or by PayPal using templeofanu@gmail.com. We appreciate your donations as a show of reciprocity, a show of ma'at for the energy that we've given you today. We will be back here in this forum, in this format, in 2 weeks for our regularly scheduled communion at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, both on Facebook and YouTube Live. And that's on Sunday, July 11th. Sunday, July 11th, we'll be back here. On Sunday, July 25th, we will be resuming in-person communions at Refound Refound headquarters in Newark, New Jersey. We will still be live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, but we will be opening at Refound headquarters on Sunday, July 25th at 1 p.m. Eastern well, really, we do in person starting at 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
But we will be starting in-person communion at 11 a.m. with meditation on July 25th, and then we will be live streaming on the 25th at 1 p.m. I'll remind you guys about that next time when I see y'all on the 9th. All right, so we're gonna close out with this song one more time. Let me pull it up.
Somebody said I was going too fast. They got
Yeah. Good thing
Sorry,
is
I got it in my
that's
hip hop.
all right. That's all right. The recording will be available to you guys on YouTube and Facebook Live, so you'll be all set to go.
So we're gonna take you out with some sounds from a new radiance by yours truly, Raw Song Cool Kepper. Y'all like my DJ voice, Raw Song Cool Kepper.
Oh Lord.
That's him at singing, y'all. I made the beat. My brother Submit.
Dua Baba.
Got mama dancing and
All right, everybody. Shamim Mateb, everybody.